Madam Speaker, for this bill, as it explains in the Explanatory Memorandum, clearly is to amend the Representation of the People Act so as to provide the compilation of a new supplementary register of electors for the forthcoming municipal and municipal town council elections, or for such other election that may be prescribed. And this will be compiled immediately after the writ of elections, thus allowing qualified, unregistered persons to submit their claims to be registered and have their names included in that supplementary register of electors. This is being done, Madam Speaker, so that every elector has a right to vote until when the elections are called. Madame la Présidente, pendant la campagne électorale, nous avions dit et redit que nous allons approfondir la démocratie à Maurice. One of the ways that we've canvassed before with the Electoral Commissioner and the Electoral Commission, that very often, this is a problem. A lot of people turn out to vote for an election. Their name is not on the register. There are many reasons for this. First of all, the canvasser who goes around to register electors, he might press the door button, nobody answers. He's supposed to come back. I am told that very often they say, maybe he came back, nobody was there, or else he never came back. These people think because they voted in the last election, the name will be on the register. We do a lot of advertising in our party, at least, that they should go and check their names. They don't very often. With the result that the names aren't there. And they turn up to vote. They are told that the names is not on the register. There can be nothing so frustrating as you wait for 5 years to go and vote, and then you don't find your name on the register. You're told you're not going to vote. In the last general elections, in the last, I think, municipal elections, there were some 1,900 something of electors who did not manage to vote. Officially, this is the number. But unofficially, I'm sure it is higher, because many people, when they're told they cannot vote, they protest, but they do not protest officially, they go home. So the numbers are not counted in that number. So we end up with this situation where people are not able to vote. Secondly, I think it is absurd that the register is compiled on the it closes on the 15th of August of whatever year. A person who is born on the 16th of August of that very year cannot vote until the register is recompiled the following year. So that person has turned 18 but cannot vote. This is what the situation was until now. What we are doing, Madam Speaker, is to correct an injustice. You know, Professor Albie Sachs, who came and reported on the electoral system, had this to say, I'm quoting offhand, he said that it is unbelievable that a person who is born on the 16th of August cannot vote in any election until the following year, that is after the 15th of August, before the 15th of the following year. That is completely unacceptable. This is what we are correcting here. We are saying that this supplementary registration will be done, but it doesn't mean that somebody who has already been registered as elector can go on the supplementary list. That is a separate list for people who have turned 18 after the 15th of August, who are not on the list at the moment, who will be able to go on the list. They will have until 5 days after the writ of the election is issued, 5 days for them to go and ensure that the name is on the list. It is correcting a major injustice that was happening in our system. You have many people who have said that there's a book called How to Rig an Election by Cheeseman and somebody else. And they go on about this. Suppression of voters from a list is one of the ways to commit fraud in an election. This happens in many countries, even today. Even in America, they're complaining that there has been suppression of voters. So it's not just Mauritius. What we are trying to do is to ensure that people get the chance, if they want to vote, to go and put themselves, register and be on the list of electors. I must also add, Madam Speaker, this also applies to somebody who wants to stand in a municipal election. If you're not on the register, you cannot be a candidate in an election. So this will also correct this injustice. Especially a young person just turned 18, maybe wants to stand as a municipal councillor. He would not have been able to do so unless he was already on the list, which was closed on the 15th of August of last year. This is what we are correcting, Madam Speaker. The second thing we are also doing, we didn't say this in the bill, but we are also ensuring that the counting is done on the same day. Some people think that we will need to amend the law again. We don't have to. This is done by regulations. Madam Speaker, in Nigeria, I think there are 23 million people. They count on the same day. In Kenya, I can't remember the exact figure, it's over 40 million. Counting is done on the same day, over 50 million. In the UK, it's over around 43 million. Why can't we in Mauritius have counting on the same day? This has the advantage. I understand we did canvass this with the Electoral Commissioner and the Electoral Supervisory Commission as well. There are logistical problems. They have genuine logistical problems. But we must overcome that problem. We are overcoming it now. We do not, in the past, there were not enough staff to start with. They were probably not even paid properly. That's another problem. But we will look into all this to make sure that counting is done on the same day. Because if when you don't count on the same day, this business of carrying boxes, ballot boxes, in all sorts of lorries, in the last, not this, in the preceding general election, 2019, in my own constituency, we have witnesses, boxes were carried in garbage trucks, in CWA lorries, with people we don't know. Our agent, the Electoral Commission, has said it and said it over again, that our agent has a right to go in the lorry. But on the day of the election, we get a policeman who's probably very pro-government, says, no, you can't get in the lorry. Who is going to go now and challenge him or ask the Electoral Commission to come and see what's happening? This has happened in many places. In number 10, in many villages, this has happened. This idea of carrying boxes and then storing them in a place. It's fraught with possibilities. What we are doing is closing the loopholes. It is a loophole. In other countries, ballot boxes were changed. In the country, I'm told they had double floors. And during transporting, they were changing I don't think this happened in Mauritius, but I can't say. For sure, I can't say. Because we're not even allowed to look into the lorries. We're supposed to be allowed, but we were not allowed. In one of the lorries, when in the 2019 election, I asked somebody, what are you doing there? He didn't answer me. I kept asking him, he didn't answer me. You know why? He was a foreigner, not a Mauritian. He's there in the lorry, standing in the lorry, sitting in the lorry, and he was in the lorry to carry out this business of carrying boxes. That is something we're also closing. Counting on the same day is possible, must be possible. Of course, the ESC will need manpower, but we'll have to ensure that this is so, and therefore this is what's going to be a thing of the past. And we want to be able to do this for general elections as well. The third point that was canvassed by the Electoral Commission and the ESC, which we totally agree with, that we should look at the possibility of Mauritians who are abroad to be able to vote in an election. In other words, the diaspora. Today, people from other countries are voting in Mauritius. And yet, Mauritians who are abroad cannot vote for their own country. That is something that we also intend to look at very positively and probably will happen. These are the three main things that I wanted to say on this, Madam Speaker. We've seen, apart from the fact that this is a great leap forward for the youth of this country. My party gave the right to vote to young people at the age of 18. Today, this alliance is allowing people who have just turned 18, who are not on the register, to be able to vote. This is one of the major reforms that we are doing for the electoral reform. This is one of the reforms. We are going to have other reforms as well. Secondly, we're going to have counting on the same day, as I said. Madam Speaker, denying a person of his right to vote, I can't see anything more treacherous and unjust. How can we allow somebody who waits for 5 years to boot out a government, as they did in the last election, and yet not able to vote in that election? There has cases that happened. Sorry?
10 years was a government election.
10 years. Thank you for reminding me. The previous government, they postponed elections, not once, not twice, 3 times, Madam Speaker. For 10 years, people have not been allowed to vote for the councillors.
Shame.
It's a great shame. Find all sorts of excuses, as you say, all sorts of excuses. We're going to have it. We had agreed. The Deputy Prime Minister, when we were passing the law about not allowing postponement of the village elections, he mentioned, he was leader of the opposition, he mentioned it at the time, that we should do it for all elections, general elections as well. We will do it this time. We have to do it. We have to do it. Same thing, I forgot my speech in my office. And, but I think I've said what I've said. This is the first step, as I said.
You said it better.
I said it better. As you say, we should be reading our speeches. No,
you've done very well up to
so
now.
far. The Representation of the People Act, which is the main piece of legislation governing our electoral process, was enacted back in 1958, at a time when Mauritius was still a British colony. 1958. And that in England, they have modified that law, but not in Mauritius. The law has stayed, just some modifications, has stayed the same. We just celebrated the 57th anniversary of our independence. And yet, a law that was passed in 1950, that is 67 years ago, it still applies for registration of electors. We know, Madam Speaker, that the right to vote is enshrined in our Constitution. Section 44 of the Constitution provides that every citizen shall be entitled to vote if he or she is registered as an elector in this constituency. The first step in a democracy is to make sure that people can vote. Those who are registered should be able to vote. And, Madam Speaker, the other problem, I've already said all this, I'm not going to go through all this, but in this case, the municipal the town council for municipalities have already been dissolved. I think it should have been dissolved yesterday.
Yeah.
So we're going to have the writ, and they will have 5 days after the writ to be able to register again. I remember, if I could, Albie Sachs, the proper quoting, he said, the disadvantage of the present system is that if elections are held after the 16th of August, which I just said, that person cannot vote until he's re-registered on the 15th of August of the following year. Further, he does also say that this house-to-house inquiry depends on the canvasser necessarily reaches the home where the people are there. Madam Speaker, we find it unacceptable that it is an assault on democracy to deny anybody his or her right to vote. With this bill, as I said, we're correcting this injustice. Voting is a civic duty. We should not deprive any citizen of his right or her right to vote. Madam Speaker, I want to quote somebody else, John Lewis, who is a civil rights, who was a civil rights when he's passed away. He said, the vote is precious. It is the most powerful, non-violent tool that we have in a democratic society, and we must be able to use it. As a responsible government, this is exactly what we are doing. Now, Part 2A of the Act, which provides for the compilation of the supplementary register, is also, it will be an addendum to the main register. As I said, people who are already on the main register will not be allowed to go on that other register. The other thing is, whose person, if he is already, as I said, on the register, will not. But the other thing that I need to say is that after the Electoral Commissioner, must say, was also of the view that the introduction of a supplementary register directly addresses the key issue of voter suppression. It ensures that eligible citizens who were not on the list are able to go on the list. The Supervisory Commission also consulted, was welcome this what we're doing, this move that we're doing. And I must also say, Madam Speaker, that this bill also contains adequate safeguards to prevent fraudulent or erroneous registrations. Provision is made under the new section 39F of the bill for objections to be raised against entries in the supplementary register. The procedure for raising an objection is clearly outlined in the bill, and they can, if somebody is not satisfied, can go to a judge in chambers to get redress if he thinks or she thinks there has been some fraud. It would also be additionally making it an offense to make false statements. It's already an offense, but we are making it punishable by fine not exceeding 10,000 rupees and a term of imprisonment not exceeding 1 year. Madam Speaker, different democracies in the world have different practices concerning registration. In the States, United States, they allow qualified citizens to register and cast their vote on the day of the election itself. I don't know how they managed to do this. Maybe the Electoral Commissioner could tell us, because it's not an easy task to be able to register on the day, because it has loopholes. Others have a continuous voter registration. Australia closes its electoral roll 7 days after an election is called. But the success of any electoral reform depends also on the local specificities to be taken into account. We all know, we all agree that democracy should be inclusive. The fundamental principle that every eligible citizen should have an equal opportunity to vote. With the dissolution of the Municipal City Council and Municipal Town Council yesterday, we now move to the upcoming municipal elections, where the supplementary register will play a crucial role. We should not allow a democratic process to be hindered for administrative reasons or outdated systems. But by extending the voter registration period, we are reaffirming our commitment to a more inclusive and representative democracy, one that truly reflects the voices of all the people. Madam Speaker, I should also say, some people might ask, but why this idea of keeping the boxes overnight? This is the reason being, a long time ago, there was no electricity in the villages. They had to keep, they couldn't, they wanted to, not to count with the candles, because counting with candles, you never know, some ballots could either inadvertently or deliberately be put on fire. It's not an impossibility. Counting on the same day is modernizing our system. And as I said, this has to be done by regulations. There is no need for a law. And let me end, Madam Speaker. As I say, voter suppression is resorted in many so-called democracies. This is the new trick now. Have elections, but have electoral fraud at the same time. In a democracy, there is no higher treacherous act than stealing an election. We should not forget, la voix du peuple, c'est la voix de Dieu. With these words, I commend the bill to the House.